So, hi everyone. Recently, I was asked a question. I think it was on the messenger board about this big beautiful bill, Trump's HR 1 big beautiful bill that was just passed by the House again, and I think the president might be signing it into law today. I'm not really sure about that, but anyway, the question was around a lot of the provisions that were put into this bill, and it seemed like a lot of those provisions are going to take effect after the 2026 elections. And so what I did is I uploaded the bill into ChatGPT to ask some questions to find out about this. And my prompt to ChatGPT was this: in the bill, it seems like there are many changes that go into effect after the 2026 election cycle. Is that true? And if so, what is the possible reasoning for that? So I'm not going to read all this word for word, but I do want to skip down through it pretty quickly. And the big answer is yes, you're absolutely right. The Trump's big beautiful bill deliberately delays many of its most significant or controversial provisions until after the 2026 midterm elections. And this is important to know. This pattern shows up in various sections of the bill across taxes, Medicaid, SNAP, and administrative funding changes. So on my screen, you see that there's just a couple of examples of different provisions of the bill that go into effect after the elections. So there's some Medicaid administrative cost sharing that goes into effect fiscal year 2027. Reductions in Medicaid expansion support that goes into effect in 2027. The sunset of clean energy tax credits that goes in. It gets phased in over 2026 to 2028. Different tax provisions, thrifty food plan reevaluation freeze. So yes, there are a number of the provisions that go into effect after the 2026 elections. So the question is, why does this happen? Okay, and there's no surprises here. And I think that the first two here on this list are pretty much the same thing. They're to avoid political blowback. So many of the things that were pushed till after the 2026 elections are cutbacks. And so, as you know, there are some tax cuts for everybody, including the middle income Americans. There are tax cuts, and so all those go into effect right now. So all the popular things go into effect now, and what they're hoping will happen is that these will actually stimulate the economy, and by the time the 2026 elections come, things will be looking better, and the Republicans have an easier chance to try to regain the House and the Senate, or I shouldn't regain, but to maintain the House and the Senate, um, because they want things to look good right before the elections. And so number two here says create boom before the ballot. Provisions like tax cuts, energy expansion, deregulation moves begin earlier to stimulate short-term economic gains, potentially boosting the party's political position in 2026. Okay, so make them look better. The other one is number three here is to score some budget gimmicks. Okay. The things that are going to cost money are going to be delayed until 2026. So we're not going to see that hit to the deficit right away. So again, at the end of the year, they can come back and say, see, the bill didn't cause any negative effects to the deficit. Well, that's because the things that are going to cost a lot of money are not going to go into effect till after the 2026 election. Um, and then I think this is really the crux of why the question was asked in the first place, which is so let's say that in 2026 we do take back the House or take back the Senate or both. What does that mean? What can we do now that this bill has been passed? And this kind of answers that question and says if the current Congress loses control after 2026, okay, delayed provision delay provisions can tie the hands of the next majority who may need to actively repeal instead of stopping implementation. Okay. So if certain provisions are not actively going after the 2026 election, they're going to have to actually repeal that. So they're going to have to get the Congress and the Senate and a majority to actually pass a bill to repeal those provisions. Okay. So it's just going to take a lot more work to do that. And so I think that's the challenge. And it's also it's going to be very important that we get everybody on board with that, because one of the things that can happen when you're trying to repeal certain provisions is people start getting greedy or start thinking too much and say, well, instead of repealing it, let's change this and change that. And then you can't get everybody on the same page. These people want to go here, these people want to go here. And it ends up just getting tied up in bureaucracy. And it's very, very hard sometimes to get things just repealed. So, and I'm not sure if you need something greater than a majority to repeal these bills or not. Um, but anyway, it's going to be a challenge. And so, anyway, the risks of delays here. Critics argue that this tactic creates fiscal uncertainty and political traps, allowing lawmakers to claim credit now without taking any responsibility for future consequences. Delayed provisions often survive by inertia, even if a new Congress disagrees with them. And again, that's what I was saying before. When these things are in place, you have to get everybody, all Democrats, to agree we're getting rid of this. And if you start getting some Democrats who say, well, instead of getting rid of this, let's change this and whatever. And then it's very hard to get things repealed. You got to be very focused to get that done. So, summary, yes, this bill is heavily front loaded. Oh, I can't talk today. With politically favorable provisions, tax cuts, deregulation, and delays, most